Portfolio Committee, led by the Chair. All well. So we'll skip that item, colleagues, and go directly to presentation of the responses by the HOD for both DAD and the entity. The entity we're talking about here is agribusiness. Colleagues, let me just, as you know, but just so that we refresh our memories before I hand over to the HOD, the reason that we are having this hearing is that when we last met with the department, Scopa was not pleased with the quality of the responses that had been presented. And we then afforded them an opportunity to withdraw their responses and to come back at a later date. They have now submitted a detailed response to us, and this is the later date. It's a virtual meeting because of the times we are in. So this is the background as to why this hearing is taking so late. They've presented a very long response to us, which you would have with you. So I'm asking the HOD to summarize where possible in the response, but to ensure that the key areas are covered. So let me hand over to the HOD, who was here in good time. HOD?
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson, Mam Kavenda. Greetings to honorable members of the committee, honorable members of the portfolio committee present, my colleagues from the department, as well as my colleagues from the entity. Honorable Chairperson, indeed, we are grateful for this opportunity to come back and present our report. In a previous meeting, as we have clearly alluded, correctly so, that the department did not provide adequate and satisfactory response to the committee. I must concede, Chairperson, that when we went back as a team, because we had to convene the team to look into the responses, we did discover that in some areas, if not most areas, the report did not respond to the questions per se, and it did not respond to the findings where AG matters were of high concern. And for that reason, Honorable Chairperson, we had to address the root of the problem with providing responses. What we then... I've got an echo, Chairperson. I'm sorry about that.
Just hold on, HOD. Colleagues, just ensure that all your mics are off, please. Let me also just tell you that this meeting is being live streamed. So if you do not want your matters to be seen, you will switch your videos off. Continue, HOD.
Thanks a lot, Chairperson. We therefore came up with a response format, which will look at what is the problem, the root problem, what is the solution to the problem that has been identified for action by the committee, and also what is progress to date. That's why the report, Chairperson, had that to be long. One, of course, we sat down with the team because this is part of it assists us to enhance our turnaround plan as a department in terms of addressing the problems that have beset the department for quite some time now. Honorable Chair, I will start, if you may, you will guide me in terms of how you want me to summarize the report. I can do it for 2 hours, I can do it in 1 hour, I can do it in 30 minutes, as well as 10 minutes, because the responses and the plan, because I can outline the plan as a whole, which will then address all the other responses. I can go through each question, and in some cases it becomes repetitive. But you will guide me as I present whether I'm too slow or you want me to summarize further. On the first one, Chairperson, that... Yes,
HOD, what I would suggest you do is go through the resolutions and your audit improvement plan. Remember, the mandate of Scopa is to look at your audit outcomes, which we did in the previous hearing, and based on the previous presentation, there were matters arising. So I would suggest that you highlight the areas in your audit improvement plan, but also as per the resolutions, provide a brief summary, but more detail on your audit improvement plan.
All right. Thanks. Because correct, Chairperson, all these responses are part of our audit improvement plan. And let me start with the first resolution of the committee. The committee resolved that the accounting officer report to the committee on the steps to address the following audit.
HOD, sorry, you don't need to repeat the resolution. Just say, for example, on resolution 5 on irregular expenditure, and then deal with your response.
All right, ma'am. Thanks. All right. On the first resolution, the response that we have provided in dealing with the issue raised on the material misstatement, that is the first one. Our response to deal with material misstatement, what we have realized is that even during the meeting of the AG, when we met with them, what they have highlighted to us was that at a strategic level, there was no leadership strategic direction given in dealing with the issues raised by the AG. For an example, at some point, the CFO then at that time could not respond adequately to the questions, even attend some of the meetings. However, that being the problem in the department, that there was no permanent CFO, there was no permanent HOD. The department has also already appointed the HOD, they've already appointed the CFO. Those are permanent, they will be accountable in terms of dealing with issues of leading to ensure that the financial statement is credible and it has no material misstatement. That is through the appointment of the leadership at the management level. Dealing with the other issue that came through as well was the issue around contract management unit. The department has currently developed a system that will ensure that all contracts are monitored and also those who are subject for renewal, those are subject for termination are done so. We are currently procuring an IT system that will ensure that all contract management now is automated. We have appointed a deputy director to deal with the issue of contract management. Because it was discovered, Chairperson, that the AG discovered that some of the contracts have gone beyond their lifetime and some have been paid, and that translated into irregular expenditure. The other issue, Chairperson, was the issue of poor procurement planning. The department did not adhere to its procurement plan, and as a result, this translated into some areas where there were no performance on the basis that procurement was done very late. In some instances, invoices were not paid on time. In some instances, order numbers were not issued. So what we have done, we've developed workshops were conducted in terms of program managers to understand what is MTFF and also ensure that there is strategic sourcing of services. And we also now within the department, the management, the ESCO meets every Monday to monitor procurement and performance of service providers. Incomplete irregular expenditure register, we have conducted full population, which with the support of Treasury, and the contract management team was augmented in February 2020, just before the end of the financial year. Yes, indeed, we had time constraints to ensure that we meet our deadline, which is the 31st of March. But with the help of Treasury, we believe that we have done 100% population of the audit of the irregular expenditure. Some of the irregular expenditure, as I've said, comes from procurement matters, some comes from contract management matters. The department is also currently working on an electronic system to assist with the large volumes of transactions on the register as well. And there's a continuous oversight by the accounting officer and the CFO in terms of us receiving on a monthly basis the register on the irregular expenditure. We don't wait now until the end of the financial year. Every month end, we should be getting the register. In adequate training of inadequate training and outdated knowledge of legislation. We also realized, Chairperson, that our supply chain management, as part of our intervention, that the AG discovered that we did not follow our own policies within supply chain. Then we realized that the intervention that we have done is that supply chain officials and all bid committees will receive training and also the understanding of local content, because local content was one of the major issues that the AG highlighted, to say most of our bids did not capture local requirements for local content. And with that omission, such transactions are always considered irregular. And all SOPs were reviewed and aligned to the latest procurement legislation. Lack of delegation, that is another issue that we have done. We've reviewed the delegation register. The delegation register now resides mainly with the accounting officer. Every transaction above 500,000 resides with the accounting officer, and anything below 500,000 resides with the CFO. That is reviewed. That will ensure that the accounting officer is aware of any major transactions in the department and is accountable for such, without having to relegate that responsibility to other members. It is cumbersome, but it is assisting at the very same time, Honourable Chair. On the other resolution that was raised, Chairperson, around the issue of the completion and monitoring of the action plan, there was a lack of capacity in terms of the M&E Directorate. It's a big problem that we have. We've advertised posts. We've recently in the process of appointing the deputy directors in the M&E Directorate, and the recommendations have been made. However, we have done the appointments. The other post, it was supposed to be interviewed on the 26th of March, just when we're entering the lockdown period. And as such, the other post was postponed. But one post has been, interviews were done. The incumbent will assume responsibilities once the lockdown has been relaxed. Lack of comprehensive, accurate, and inconsistent data reporting template. That was another problem. What we have done, we have aligned and streamlined all reporting template within the directorate, in a sense that every district, every local area manager will have a common standardized template. Because what the AG has discovered in the recent past was that each district will report according to its own KPIs, which were not in a format which is standard across districts. That has been addressed. The lack of monitoring and the evaluation in the district. We have called a meeting of all the districts, and we have identified each personnel that will be responsible to assist the directorate in terms of the populating of information and also ensuring that the information is credible as well. Manual reporting system, we have realized that the manual reporting system is compromising us in the department in terms of providing reliable and credible information. The department is procuring an automated system. We have been through engagement with the various service providers to establish which system will be aligned to our resource enterprise plan within the department. The implementation of the SMART principle to develop targets. Yes, that was a big problem when it comes to the development of action plan around monitoring and implementation, which in the main impact in terms of our performance reporting. Our targets were not SMART, they were not following the SMART principles, and they were not providing information that the AG can use to measure our performance. And as such information was always found to be not reliable. And we have corrected that. We have met with the team. Unfortunately, I must concede, Chairperson, when we reviewed our APP with the team, it was already after the adjustment budget, and we could not by legislation adjust the APP, because it will mean that the APP must go back to legislature, must go to Treasury for approval. But we will disclose to the AG to say there are a few areas where the APP targets were not following the SMART principle. In terms of the 2020-2021 financial year, the APP has been improved drastically to ensure that our targets follows the SMART principles going forward. In terms of Resolution 7, Chairperson, there was a request that we looked in terms of performance and oversight reporting. Chairperson, there were issues around monitoring action and internal controls, procurement and contract management. What we have said earlier on is that in terms of performance reporting oversight, as I've said, Chairperson, we are now moving to monthly presentation of performance. That will be done to the HOD on a monthly basis to monitor performance, not only of meeting targets, because some of the targets, what we've discovered, they might be achieved without having to ensure that they are aligned with the budget. So when we monitor performance on a monthly basis, we also monitor the performance of service providers, because such performance must be aligned to budget, so that we don't meet 100% targets whilst performance budget is inadequate near to 100% or even 50% for that matter. So those monthly reports are now being developed and submitted to the HOD. All achieved targets are escalated to the HOD, and remedial interventions are made to ensure that targets are achieved. Inadequate verification of credibility of information. So we've got the regular audit of such targets and such achievements. That will be done on quarterly basis by the audit team and the internal audit. Yes, with the help of Treasury, it also assists us a lot. Financial reporting oversight. What we have done in terms of ensuring that financial reporting is monitored. Initially, there was inability to respond to address challenges identified in the IYM. So the IYM was in the past considered a compliance issue. It was not part of the report that requires action plan. So we've developed a turnaround plan on a monthly basis. Again, the IYM will be submitted to the MEC, where we will have an engagement with the MEC in terms of what are the constraints that are being identified might have lead to areas of concern, especially around the financial performance. The turnaround plan has been developed, and in terms of our action plan, we have presented some part of it to the audit portfolio committee, and it's an ongoing document. It's a live document which is developed and updated on an ongoing basis, because as things change, given that we are in a dynamic organization and a bit complex, as things changes, our turnaround plan changes. We don't have a static turnaround plan. It's very dynamic. The revival of the Budget Expenditure Committee, we have revived the Budget Expenditure Committee of all chief directorates. Contract management, that was the biggest issue that the AG has identified. There was capacity constraints within the unit, where we have then solution was to monitor the contracts and ensure proactive renewal and termination of contracts. We have realized, as I've said earlier on, Chairperson, contracts were not monitored, and I've said earlier on that the DT post has been filled. We also going on automation. Service contracts were rendered on a month-to-month basis, and that is a big problem, and we have not adequately 100% addressed it. Unfortunately, COVID has also put a spanner on that. Some of the contracts were not terminated. You'll find that we will continue to renew them on a month-to-month basis, and they will exceed their lifetime. the lifespan. As a result, the AG will find issues. The department have reviewed all contracts in October, and that also includes security contracts and other contracts. For security contract, I think we have been to court twice. We managed to terminate the contracts. It was one of the tedious challenges. We have gone on an advert to advertise the contracts, and unfortunately, in March, when we were about to finalize the spec and the terms of reference, because we go automated security contract and we also have the physical security contract, which is a new intervention. Security contract were the major problems. Treasury this week has given us a go-ahead to advertise. We are advertising the security contract, which was the biggest one. The cleaning contracts are minor issues. They are not of major concern. Manual system of recording contracts, we are going, as I've said, we finalized the review of all service providers in terms of their offerings, and we are finalizing the best system that we will be procured for automation. Of course, most of the service providers are part of the national transversal tender. We are not advertising. We are looking at those that are in the national transversal bid. The procurement plan, that was another issue, Chairperson. High vacancy rate affected the implementation of the procurement plan. We had more than around 200 posts, vacant posts. And in the supply chain alone, finance alone, there were 24 posts that have not been filled. And in January, we finalized the job description. What delayed us in the main was that in November last year, I got a mandate from the MEC to say you must centralize procurement. Because one of the challenges that is happening in the department, there is no oversight due to decentralization of procurement. We then started the process of centralizing procurement, and that alone had to redefine the new job descriptions, and the HR team had to look with the CFO the best model that will fit our centralization of procurement. And when we finalized that process, we identified the post, we submitted to the Premier's office for approval. And my understanding, if I stand to be corrected, we have not yet received the response. I am waiting for the Premier's office to give us a go-ahead and fill those 24 positions, which are very critical when it comes to procurement. And non-compliance with SCM, what we have realized is that there were bids that did not follow the Treasury practice notes. And those bids had to be re-advertised, especially those that had long-term contracts. We resolved that those with less term, those that were of short-term contracts related to construction, we will have to disclose to the AG because they have got a performance issue. They are linked to our planting season. We have to disclose to the AG to say some of these bids did not follow the Treasury practice notes, such as local content in the main. But in the majority of them, had to be re-advertised because when the CFO did her review of all the bids that were appointed for long-term panels and so forth, it did not follow supply chain practices. Fragmented supply chain, as I've said, we are centralizing supply chain. We had 3 office centers of supply chain, and that also created problems. There was a Hilton office, Sidara office, as well as the one at Mkanyagute. And we have to discover if people are not happy with what the service they get at the Hilton, or they're not happy with what the system is at Hilton, they will then go to Mkanyagute and do the bid today. So that was some of the stories that we were dealing with the department. Resolution 8, Chairperson, material underspending budget of 264 million. This was one of the exciting projects that we had to undertake. Exciting in a sense that it reveals what has been the fundamental structural problem in the department over the years. And that assists us in a very short space of time to address some of these problems within the department, in the main, the relationship between the head office and the district, as well as the area managers. We have realized that the 265 million stems from previous years, Chairperson. If you go the other year, there was 165 million, and the other year it goes to above R1 billion over the last 3 years that the department had been underspending. That is a serious concern, and we realized that one of the problems was the inadequate adherence to procurement plan. So what we do now, if we need to monitor the procurement plan, as we have said, it's monitored on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, and every report that we do in terms of our procurement plan, we don't only monitor the targets in terms of the APP, we also monitor the service providers, which in the main are linked to the performance budget of the department, and invariably are linked to how the department will perform at the end. So that is what we do. The second one is the lack of capacity and leadership. I think one of the biggest problems at the department was that we did not have a position for the CFO that was accountable on a permanent basis. So was the HOD. The other one was the SCM critical position. We have managed to secure a person in an acting capacity. We were waiting for the rationalization process to be completed and identify additional resource from the entities. However, we have now got one colleague who's acting. He seemed to be on top of his game. He understands legislation, and so far it is indeed assisting. That his presence has assisted us to turn around. Between December and March, we had an under expenditure of 450 million rand, just below R500 million, that we managed to bring it down to less than 90 million rands, which is how we worked. The team worked 24 hours a day to ensure that the services was rendered and performance was done. So to me, there is progress. However, we still need to fill the 24 positions to ensure that the department is adequately staffed. Uncertainty of the Scopa classification code. What happened there? We've required that to provide clarity. Hello?
We can hear you, HOD. Let me just request members, there may be people who have their mics on. Please put them off. Proceed, HOD.
Thanks, ma'am. So, Chairperson, what happened is that we have realized that the Scopa issues are going to, in terms of classification, they cut across all departments. That is an ongoing issue that we need to improve on, and our CFO is very active, and she's constantly engaging treasury, and she is full time, and she's assisting in terms of ensuring that treasury is on board in terms of clarification of those transactions in terms of Scopa classifications. Non-compliance with SCM prescripts, as I've said, from now on, all bids that we do, they ensure compliance. That I can assure, especially from the 1st of April this year, all bids ensure compliance, and all bids meet Treasury's practice notes, and we don't foresee us in the future having challenges in terms of meeting Treasury's requirements. In terms of the delays in the experience in the renewal of transversal contracts, we had few issues. National Treasury also it's put a spanner in some cases where the renewal of contracts are taking longer. But that is beyond our control, unfortunately. And that relies, especially on the transversal contracts, that relies on Treasury. But our CFO does engage both national and provincial Treasury on an ongoing basis. Delays experienced from Department of Works in terms of implementing infrastructure projects. Our MEC have met with the MEC for Department of Works. I've met with the HOD of Department of Works. We are both looking at improving their support in assisting us to roll out infrastructure projects. We had budgeted 27 million rands, around that figure, to roll out infrastructure infrastructure projects, which are around office improvement, office repairs and construction. The HOD from Public Works is committed to say, look, they've just appointed a person who's a director in that unit. She joined this year early. Then they commit to improve. Financial reporting oversight implemented to prevent under expenditure. What we have done, we've identified slow progress addressing challenges identified in the IYM. And as I've said earlier on, we have now used the IYM as a performance tool, performance monitoring tool, rather than a compliance issue. So we are looking into that. To under expenditure requested to roll over for each program for the 2018 financial year. Program 1 was 41 million. And what happened, that the department from savings under compensation in the 1920 financial year funded 4.5 million of the amalgamation of the public entities. And then we had 1.6 million under expenditure against advertised consumable suppliers and audit cost. We had 2.2 million under expenditure against transfer. But those figures, members of the portfolio committee, we are responding to them. They are part of the report that we have done to the financial committee, to the finance portfolio committee. That same report that we have done to our portfolio committee. In terms of those are the programs in terms of the expenditure. Program 1. Program 2, 45 million. That is from the previous financial year. In terms of how we are dealing with those issues, Chairperson. Chairperson, what happened is that we are now, since we have developed a plan. Our plan mainly is saying going forward, under expenditure will be monitored consistently on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And as such, as I've said, when we started around December, we had almost 500 million rand. By the end of March, we managed to push contracts. Because what happened, Chairperson, what we've discovered when we undertook this exercise, we then invited all district directors to come to Sidara and account in terms of their performance per district. And also to ensure that every project that is under them, there is reporting to financial performance. We realized, Chairperson, that some contract products were awarded long time ago. For example, 3 million rands to supply seeds. But the sales providers never supplied even a single seed for some time. Then we took a resolution to terminate all those long outstanding non-performing service providers. And then we turn around and say, look, we are going to identify within the service providers in our panel who are delivering on time and who seem to have capacity to deliver. And then we re-advertised. And luckily, what we found is that those that we identified were able to submit their bids, and we appointed, they delivered on time. That also speaks to fertilizer, because some of the service providers had orders of fertilizer sitting with them. And what was interesting is that some of these orders were like collateral with some of the service providers, some non-cash transactions sitting in their bank account that they can use as a collateral in some of their business transactions. And then we terminated all of those. and then we re-advertise the fertilizers bids again. That also speaks to the mechanization as well. That the mechanization one, we realized that some of them were not performing in the district. We terminated some of them, and I said they must give us a report, and those who are doing well, they must be seconded, extended their services, and completed the planting season around March. For example, at Indwe, we had a serious problem. At Tugela, we had another serious problem. So we did intervene, Chairperson. That is why our performance was drastically improved. And that is why we said these were the exciting findings that we discovered in the department, that service providers will sit with their orders and not deliver and not perform, and no action will be taken. And as such, that has come to an end. Luckily, Chairperson, none of the service providers challenged us. We have never been to court. And even when we re-advertised, those who participated, we only had one challenge which was addressed, and we believe everybody felt that our intervention was free and assisted. Thanks, Chairperson. Around this resolution 9 of the material impairment of 6.1 million. The response for Umchindi, Chairperson, Umchindi is no longer in operation as we speak, due to the fact that Cabinet took a decision that there must be rationalization of the entities within agriculture and have one entity, which is now ADA. The assets and liabilities of Umchindi are now under ADA. And what we have done, we have been through Emakatini for several times. We met the trust members, we met the board on several times. The MEC went there twice recently as well to meet with the farmers as well. What has been the case, Chairperson? Umchindi, in terms of their repayment of their services, especially the farmers, it's a very sad case, Chairperson. I must be honest, because as you engage the people, you move away from paper transactions. You want to understand what has been the challenges. Then you realize that there are two scenarios that comes out of that engagement. One is that there is no culture of payment. The entitlement culture is there, that I concede. But the other culture is the issue of adequate service that people receive from our entity. Which is beyond the control of the entity, because the irrigation scheme and the capacity to service farmers is not adequate. Some of the machineries are old, and as such, they are not functioning in their even 75% capacity. We are currently assisting to ensure that those infrastructure is improved. And that again, Chairperson, if person find that I don't get the service, they've got the tendency to say, I'm not going to pay, even if you give me 10% of the service. So those are some of the issues. But there are other underlying factors. To say these debts are old. Some of the debts belong to their fathers. And then some of the members were saying, let us look at writing those debts. Umchindi has got 220 letters that were sent. Some of the water were disconnected. Farmers have signed a new session with Itonga Tulet to deduct water services fee and pay directly to Umchindi. So these are some of the interventions that were done. Under agribusiness, material underspending into conditional grants, I think that the CEO is here. I think they are going to be speaking on the issue. But their response, Chairperson, is that these are related most in the infrastructure required engineering services. These projects included the dairy farms, Estin Abattoir, fruit and the citrus fruit farm, and so forth. According to their current 1920 grant, the project to be fully spent. That is what the asset is committed. In terms of Resolution 50, transversal resolutions, Chairperson, for the department, transversal resolution, lack of leadership was mainly in terms of internal control, environment, and the prevention of irregular expenditure. I think, Chairperson, we have said it before. Some of these might be repetitive because they speak to the same root problem. The transversal in terms of irregular expenditure and recovery of losses. For example, in terms of the irregular expenditure that we've outlined earlier on, Chairperson, can I not go through the same? Because
actually, there's no need to repeat that.
That one is going to be repetitive, yes. In terms of vacancies, supply chain, I've said in the supply chain there were 44% vacancies, which were currently waiting for the Office of the Premier to assist that. In terms of the Internal Irregular Expenditure Committee that we've established, it has already recommended to Treasury Chairperson the condonation of 182 million rands to be condoned. That leaves us with 524 million rands to be condoned. In total, 190 million rands will be condoned because there was an 8 million rands that was additional, and that leaves 524 million rands that should not need to be condoned. A total 17 cases have been investigated, disciplinary processes instituted and finalized, and there is an Annexure A and Annexure B to that effect. The balance of the 524 million rands is currently reviewed and considered by the internal irregular expenditure. Steps will be taken to recover the losses. That means that this is an ongoing work within the department. And there are internal control cases as well, because each treasurer has given us some that dates back to 2015. Some of the contracts dates back to 2 years ago. So we have written to Treasury recently, requesting them to conduct an investigation into those matters. There were no losses in terms of goods and services that were received by the department. The internal investigation by the internal control unit revealed that there were value of money. However, the main transactions detected were non-compliance. So it means that most of the irregular expenditure that we have in our department, in terms, the majority of them, I'm not saying 100%, majority of them did not speak to fraud. Those that were referred to fraud, we have taken a bold step to request Treasury to investigate. We have also agreed that we will dedicate a unit for risk and supply performance, which will assist institutionalized compliance at a transitional level. We're not going to wait that the transition is completed before we undertake such. Where regular expenditure is related to fraud, corruption, and other criminal conduct, whether the matter has been reported to SAPS or Provincial Treasury, we will still do internal investigation as well. There are matters, Chairperson, that were referred to the Hawks or the SAPS. We have not received a report. We have not received a report. When I came into the department, we requested that we will need to meet with the team that is currently taking those investigations and see how far are they in terms of their performance. That has not been done, Chairperson, due to other pressing matters that came through. One of the pressing matters that we had seriously so that we were dealing with was the turnaround plan for the department. And then secondly, we were faced with the COVID. So the matter of meeting with the Hawks or the team, that is Special Investigation Unit, that has been instituted in the department. We have not met them, but we will do so soon. There are attachments, Chairperson, that refers to matters that were undertaken internally, and below B are matters that were actions taken by recommendation by Treasury and the actions taken by the department. When it comes to Resolution 51, but I must indicate, Chairperson, that some of these matters were treated before our times. And the accountability at that time could not be transferred in terms of how the people accounted at that time. So in principle, you cannot transfer accountability, but you can only deal with how we can at the moment. One can only be responsible to correct what might have been found to not to be correct. But the accountability of the past remains in the past, and we've got a responsibility to correct the wrongdoing of the past. So that is the distinction one wanted to present to the members, so that when they come back and say, hey, there are cases in 2011, the accountability of 2011 can only be corrected, but not accounted presently. Resolution 51, Chairperson, is the value of the irregular expenditure. As I've said, on irregular expenditure, I think we've dealt with irregular expenditure and how we are treating it. And the CEO of ADA can also add in terms of how irregular expenditure will be treated and and how we are dealing with such. Umchindi as well, as I've said, ADA now is responsible for Umchindi. We have transferred the responsibility to ADA to deal with Umchindi issues. They have done a lot. Umchindi has got a clean audit, which is a good thing. However, there are issues that will require ADA to constantly monitor and report. That also speaks to Resolution 52 in terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Chairperson, our response in terms of fruitless expenditure, the department had a closing balance of 112,000, which is made up of 45 cases. Damage to hired vehicle, 23,000. 3 cases have been resolved. There were no show cases, which is mean accommodation. For some reasons, people did not show up, and then 5 of those were resolved. 3 remaining cases will be finalized, or I've signed recently some of these cases, because we've got a committee looking into irregular expenditure and fruitless expenditure. Interest paid, 14,000 rand, 34 cases were to be resolved by 31st of March. The damage to 3 vehicles, there is a detailed report that were done. But some of those goes back to old cases, some bodyguards, some employees, but all of them were dealt with. The no-show charges of 11,000 rands, as I said, there is a report that has been submitted to my office recently, and we constantly look into that. Interest paid, there is a report there that by 31st of March 2020, and what we have done, we are looking at waiving those interests where the fault lies with the for the invoicing. Pension fund interest paid, that is very common, because some of the areas that we normally constantly look into, but those are non-material. However, we don't condone them. We constantly ensure that we are always monitored, and we engage with the CFO to ensure that all the time these issues are addressed. That is the story in terms of no-show. The report is detailed, Chairperson. That also includes the entities. In terms of procurement and contract management, Chairperson was spoken in terms of what is our intervention in terms of contract management and how we are dealing with the issue. We have got an audit improvement plan, which is being implemented. And we also have taken steps to ensure risk assessment responses processes are reviewed and adequately addressed, Chairperson. Resolution 54, forensic investigation. Our response, we've got the resolution of the Department on Forensic Investigation. We have submitted cases that are on the attached list. And in the main, those that were in the department, as I've said earlier on, have been finalized, recommended. Those that were recommended to Treasury have been submitted to Treasury. But those that are still with the SIU, we are waiting for SIU to give us a report. But we will meet them. Resolution 55, internal investigation, Chairperson. What we have done is that the investigation in terms of that will refer to provincial internal audit services is Annexure D. The list is submitted. Where investigations are still in progress, provide a report to the anticipated date of completion, challenges experienced in conducting finalized investigation, and steps to be taken in such. What happened, Chairperson, is that our meeting with Treasury now is looking into such issues. We have also submitted such reports to, we discussed them in our recent meeting with CARC at CARC level as well, in terms of speeding up some of these issues. Resolution 56, risk management, Chairperson. Risk management section conduct regular follow-ups in terms of monitoring of the implementation of risk management strategies. Risk management committee under the leadership of the HOD that meets on a monthly basis with Treasury, on a quarterly basis with Treasury, and the report is received and discussed. And such, the report is taken to account for further actioning. There are risks that have been identified in terms of the percentages: 35, which are critical, 32%, which are major. And they will develop an action plan to deal with those risk issues, Chairperson. Resolution 57, consequence management. Recently, the province has developed a policy on consequence management. We are making an input to ensure that there is policy. However, consequence management in the department, definitely it's about taking action where wrongdoings has been done. The accounting office has, for an example, looked in terms of the issues raised by the AG. Are there any outstanding matters that have not been taken up in action? That process is undertaken. What we have also done is that all issues raised by the internal audit treasury, are those matters taken up and conducted? Yes, we have done. Then we've taken up and then returned to treasury to take up forensic investigation. There are areas where we do internal investigation ourselves and to ensure that there is compliance. There are cases now where transactions were dealt with, and the sum goes back to 2017, 2018. And then findings as well as outcomes of each investigation. There was only one matter identified by the AG for the recovery of the amount of 31,000, which has been misappropriated by a member of the Ntumeni Vuma cooperative. So that matter has been dealt with through the state attorney, and it's a matter that is ongoing. However, it's worrying us that there was no proper control. What we have done, Chairperson, around this matter, we are looking at a service provider to assist us on two areas. One is the monitoring of and the evaluation of the mechanization. The other one is to do a high impact assessment, monitoring capacity building, where we are funding emerging farmers. And that process is almost done. We will appoint those service providers to ensure that there is value for money. We've realized that through our internal processes, there are weaknesses. And those weaknesses stems from capacity, internal capacity, lack of internal capacity. Those weaknesses might stem from collaboration with our employees. And as such, we felt that to give credibility and credence on our transactions and avoid such where people disappear with money, they will monitor the transfers that we've done to farmers and our support. Is there value for money? Are farmers growing? What is the problem? Because we have been, Chairperson, I'll be honest with you, we did an assessment. In the last 5 years, we've given almost 3 billion to emerging farmers. And what is that 3 billion have translated into? So these are some of the issues that is worrying us as a department going forward. And we can't just be spending 100 million to chase 31,000 rand. It's not cost effective. But if we have got proper system, you will never chase any cent. The proper system will tell you whether there's value for money and where to improve. So I'm raising this so that when honorable members are asking me about how far are you with 31,000, I know that in future I will have a better plan to monitor 300 million rands and where 31,000 rands have gone missing in the past, and we are chasing 31,000 rands using 100 million rands might not be strategic. However, we are pursuing the matter through the state attorney, and I'm saying this so that the matter of 31,000 remains not a big issue in terms of us doing wrong for the future, but looking into the future to correct these issues. The state attorney will try to make a follow-up through our internal control system, and also to take lessons from there to ensure that it's not repetitive, because it doesn't well. It's not adding any value to spend money, and there is no cost benefit, or the cost benefit far exceed and as a department chairperson, we need to move away from that. We need to have our farmers being sustainable at some point. Resolution 58, predetermined objectives. This one area chairperson, I think we have done a lot in terms of our interventions. The department has prepared an audit improvement plan and is attached as Annex A. Resolution 59, filling of critical positions. Chairperson, filling of critical positions has been one of the challenges in the department. There are two areas which can you, Honorable Tillis, switch off the mic. It comes back to me. What happened, Chairperson? We have realized that the main challenge in the department, without any contradiction, has been the relationship with the unions. And can you switch off?
Colleagues, can I just ask those with the mics on to switch them off?
Thanks.
Continue.
The unions chairperson in the department, not NEHAW, but members of NEHAW, have been really instrumental in terms of how the department is managed. Well, there are positive cases, but there are negative cases around especially recruitment. One is discovered that there is a culture in the department that says the HOD must account to unions before advertising posts, which means there must be an agreement in terms of which post to advertise and which post not to advertise. I have never seen that in any legislation. Secondly, the issue of committees, that there must be an agreement between the unions, in this case all unions, in a committee that they've established in the department, that the HOD must go there and present the committees, the interview committees or the recruitment committees. I've never seen that, Chairperson. And for that alone, because we brought a new culture to say we are not co-managing the department with labor, but we do account to labor in terms of labor relations matters. And for that reason, we have consulted other structures of union. They've agreed with us to say it's a good approach. And that, again, Chairperson, has caused animosity in terms of how we deal with recruitment. What I've discovered, Chairperson, when I realized that some of the processes, they seem to be micromanaged somewhere else, I then collapsed all these committees where on areas where the delegation is within my powers. I then consulted with the MEC. We established new committees. I must indicate, Chairperson, that we realized that we have to move with speed, because when we advertised posts in September, by December those posts were not interviewed. And I could see that there was a problem, and the problem was coming between the relationship between our recruitment process and the relationship with labor. And then I said to the team, I will establish new committees in terms of our own recruitment policy. And those committees will be mainly consisting of senior management. And we will set aside the weekend where we will recruit, in one weekend, we shortlist all the posts that we had. We had more than 50 positions, and we had more than 500 applicants. We had more than 3,000 applicants that we had to shortlist for those positions. And in one weekend, we shortlisted. However, unions were not happy with our process, because I said to the members, Chairperson, I'll be upfront because this came through the papers as well. I said, supply chain, can you find a common venue where I don't need to pay people for traveling? Because during the week, I'll be honest with you, Chairperson, we were working. There was no time to do recruitment because of the agency of the turnaround time of our turnaround plan. And the time factor was not on our side. So the weekend was the most appropriate time to do the shortlisting. And supply chain got a hotel at a rate which was far below the normal rate of the hotel per se. And they did comparison of prices. The members were happy with the hotel. We used the hotel next to our district office, which is, what is this place? Estena. Then the members used the hotel for a weekend at a very cheaper price. We were even given free conference rooms at no cost. And within Treasury guidelines. It was not a conference. It was a meeting of the department to do recruitment. Some members met at our district office at Stena, and others were, because of the availability of the free conference, they were meeting there. And I was there, Chairperson. There was nobody who would go to sleep until that process was done. And it was done, Chairperson. We were going to go on interviews and complete all these 45 positions before 10 April. Unfortunately, yangena ke corona yasibamba. Kodwa manje what we are doing, Chairperson, we are looking at doing what we call this Zoom. But yesterday Zoom gave us another story to say it might not be safe. We're looking at Skype in terms of our engagement with the applicants. However, some applicants have given us that they don't have access to such resources, and we are looking into fast-tracking the recruitment process. So that is where we are, Chairperson. The 45 positions are shortlisted, waiting for interviews. We were going to go for the next round of interview of shortlist. What do you call these adverts? Unfortunately, we were told that we can't advertise now because people might not have opportunity to submit their applications, those who want to travel and submit. So that process again, it has been installed. But I must concede, that was the move that we did over that weekend. It's not new. I did the same when I was at ATIA. It worked, Chairperson, where we went on 2 days, 10 days, the committee around and do the recruitment. It worked quicker. It delivered the results. So we were about to use the same approach, and it was going to go quicker. As I've said, there might be issues that the committee members might find in the public domain, but some of them are advanced by our contradiction in terms of policy direction in driving the department with labor. So those don't surprise me. Resolution 60, Chairperson, around the misstatement of the financial statement. We are busy with the financial statement as we speak. We've developed a quality assurance team led by the CFO. I believe the CFO will deliver us a financial statement with far less material statement than ever before, given that she started to work on time and she's got the support from Treasury. That same applies to Ada. Umjindi will submit their AFS not as a going concern, and there are accounting standards that needs to be adhered to with such, and that will be attended to. We also have a new and old elephant. We've got an elephant in the room, which is called KZN Trust or Farm Trust, Natal Farm Trust, which is an entity that we've met with the executive recently. They've given us their financial statement. We are looking into their books before we close that trust. We look at their books, we'll verify their assets before we can transfer anything. That trust has given us their financial statements, which from my background, which I've studied business management for some time, I was not happy with it. It needs to be verified by an external independent person before we can close it. But Umjindi will be audited by the AG, and as such we are happy with that process. The CFO Umjindi and the CEO, the former CEO, the MEC has extended their contracts until end of July, so that they can do the submission of the AFS, and ADA will take it up at that point to respond to the AG once the AFS has been conducted and the AG has completed their audit. ADA will take over the process after July. It depends how far lockdown will go. If they say August, ADA will take after August. a lot of things have changed, Chairperson, as a result of COVID. I've given just a helicopter, Resolution 61, non-payment of invoices within 30 days. I think that information, Chairperson, we are working very hard to ensure that we pay invoices within 30 days. In those historical issues, we are trying to address them. The CFO, in terms of the IYM, submits reports in terms of those invoices that are paid within 30 days. I think she will add, after I've spoken in terms of that part alone, commitments and on audit findings and related matters. I think we have committed, Chairperson. I've met the AG team recently. We're about to meet with them until the COVID attack, and they left the building. And we might be having a meeting virtually in the next coming few days to see how far we can go in terms of their engagement, because seemingly there's a plan that the AG will come back. But they have been working off-site, and we are disinfecting their office spaces and providing adequate internal control systems to ensure that if they come back, they are safe and our employees are safe as well. Honorable Chair, that is where I will end with my presentation, which has taken 1 hour, 5 minutes. I will submit and humbly apologize for recent engagement, Chairperson. I thank you.
Thank you very much, HOD. Colleagues, I think that, compared to the previous presentation that we had, this is a comprehensive, far more comprehensive response. I'm aware that you will have questions, and I trust that you have noted them. But what I would also like you to factor in, colleagues, is the audit improvement plan, which was circulated to you, so that when you raise matters, you will also raise matters on the audit management or audit improvement plan, which has been circulated. I'm not going to ask the HOD to talk to it because he's covered some of the matters, but you can factor that into your questions and comments. Let me, before I hand over to you, let me just recognize the presence of the MEC who joined the meeting some time ago, and let me ask whether she would like to make a few brief comments. MEC?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Greetings to honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. Chair, I believe that with the presentation,
MEC, we cannot hear you. I think there's some difficulty.
How am I doing now? Hello?
You are fine. You're back.
I'm fine now. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair, I was saying that I'm greeting yourself and the members of the Standing Committee and the team from Department of Agriculture and Rural Development and your support staff from the legislature. I wish to say that, Chair, with the areas that I was going to comment on earlier, before if I was given a chance, the HODs that has been covered in the report that the HOD has put forward. Safe to say that, Chair and honorable members, as a department, we are committing to ensure that what actually you have raised and say we must go back and correct, we are going to do it. And as I'm seated here, I'm comfortable with the manner in which you have been pushing in some of the areas that you have raised. And I'm certain that when we come back, we will be doing better than what we have presented today. With last time, we really apologize for what happened. We really want to say that it was not because we undermined the committee, but we wanted to assure the committee that we are present in all the meetings, as you would know. I respect all the committees, especially all the portfolio committees and standing committee that I'm supposed to report to. And it won't happen again. We'll try by all means to ensure that it doesn't clashes with other meetings of the cabinet, so that we come and I'm present to hear what are the issues, so that when we go back as a team with my team, I'm able to follow up some of the issues and ensure that I push them so that we meet the deadlines as you have given us. On that note, I want to thank you and say we also pledge that we are committed to ensure the accountability, the efficient and effectiveness of the Department of Agriculture. And we are trying by all means to say whatever this department is supposed to do is done, and is done in time, and is done according to the legislative requirement as expected. And I'm saying that, and as you would know, that we are going around trying to reduce, for the COVID-19, we are reducing the cost. We don't want to spend any money beyond what we can do internally. And we are going to do our own sanitizers, as we have seen, and we are assisting other departments in ensuring that they reduce their cost, because our intention is not to spend much, and our intention is not to go outside the regulations that are put in place. On that note, Honourable Chair, I want to thank you for allowing us to go back and clean ourselves and come back with a report that is going to give an indication of what we are doing and actually our commitment in correcting the issues that have been there, which were not doing work as expected as a department. I'm certain that with the presentation that the HOD has put forward, you're getting that comfort that we are doing something to correct the situation. Thank you, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members.
Thanks, Honourable MEC. Let me just, in handing over to the colleagues, point out that we welcome the initiative you are reporting on about producing sanitizers in-house. I think that the COVID-19 pandemic has changed a lot of the way in which things are to be done. And this does afford local communities and local companies concerns the opportunity of actually growing and producing locally needed goods, which will enhance the economy and improve the prospects of income generation of people in the province. So we welcome that initiative. I'm sure we will hear more from it as time goes. And we also welcome your commitment to remaining within the framework of regulations. I think particularly with your department, MEC, where in the past we have seen many transgressions. And that is evidenced by the number of resolutions that we have here to follow up on. We must also welcome the appointment of the HOD and the new staff that is being spoken about, because in a sense it is a breath of fresh air, because we can see that despite challenges that are being reported on here, there is some progress that has been made, in fact quite good progress, and we welcome that. The key areas which I'm sure my colleagues, when they want to raise their concerns, will cover are issues around irregular expenditure that have been reported on, issues around procurement, alignment of your APPF budget, internal controls, underspending of your budget, underspending of the entities, and we must also welcome the rationalization that has occurred, MEC. We are aware, as you know, of the negative impact that the delays in rationalizing have had on audit outcomes of these entities. We're also looking at your procurement and contract management, your risk management, consequence management, the filling of critical vacant posts, material misstatements, non-payment within 30 days, and your commitments in terms of audit findings and the audit improvement strategy. So there are, all of which have been reported on, but I'm certain that colleagues will want to raise matters. So let me hand over to you. Can you please indicate, colleagues, and this would include our colleagues from the Portfolio Committee, although preference will be given to the members of Scopa first, and Portfolio Committee matters would obviously be raised within the Portfolio Committee. Colleagues?
Chairperson, could I just raise a concern before you go to questions, please?
Yes, Honourable Rogers.
Chairperson, in the report on the resolutions, it refers to certain annexures attached to the document. I don't, if I could get clarity, I don't see copies of those annexures. Also, you indicated that the audit improvement strategy had been circulated. But if I look at the email that was sent to us, it's in fact human settlements audit improvement strategy. So unless I'm looking at my mails wrong, could I just try and get a bit of clarity there, please, Chair?
Honourable Rogers, these reports were circulated. I'm going to just refer you to an email that was sent yesterday by, sorry, not yesterday. I think this was sent earlier. I'm just trying to find it myself. But we did receive them. Yesterday, what Cabo had done was given us the updated presentations from human settlements. The risk, the audit improvement strategy has been emailed. Cabo, can you just re-email these things? Because I do have them, but I'm not sure whether these have gone through. I'm just looking. Let me just get Cabo to re-email these things to you. Scopa annexures from Zam Masondo. Right. These would have, I'm just looking. Okay, I received them yesterday. I don't know if Cabo has sent them out. I'll get him to email to you now so you can have them on your email. Sorry about that, Honourable Rogers.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate that. And then the annexures that was referred to by the HOD, I don't see copies of those either.
I'll just ask Cabo to email them all to you as a batch now. Okay, so you can refer to them. Okay, Cabo, can you please do that? Can we then take questions, members?
Yes, Chair Kaula.
Honourable Kaula, yes.
I don't know if you'd like to take the list first and then we go according to your list.
Let me take the list. So I've got Kaula.
Peleza.
Honourable Peleza.
Rogers.
Honourable Rogers.
Honourable Nkosi.
Honourable Nkosi. Okay.
Honourable de Klerk.
Okay, Honourable de Klerk. Anybody else? Okay, we'll take this as the first round. Let me also say that I've received an apology from the chairperson of the committee who has asked to be excused due to some issue for her to deal with. Okay. We'll start with Honourable Kaula.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And greetings to the Honourable MEC, the HOD and the team from Agriculture and colleagues from both Scopa and the Portfolio Committee. Chairperson, firstly, thanks to the MEC and the HOD for their improvement on the previous disaster. It is noticeable. I want to take you, HOD, to the page 5 of your presentation, where you tell us that, I think it's item 7, if I'm not mistaken, that the CFO resigned. What I want to find out is, has this been reported or handed over to the relevant authorities as per the public service regulations? And then go on to page 7. Page 7, you are talking about the APP that was not aligned to the budget. It's a comment, Chairperson, to say the Portfolio Committee must ensure that this doesn't happen in future. And I do want to say, Chairperson, maybe this also needs to be reported to the planning section of the Department of the Premier, because they monitor the APPs. I don't know how this escaped both the Portfolio Committee and also the Premier's planning section. Page 8, the report says that the accounting officer did not exercise adequate oversight of financial and performance reporting and compliance with legislation, blah, blah, blah. My question is, what steps have been taken in respect of that accounting officer? Because I've heard the HOD towards the end saying, he talks about putting good money after bad money. But the issue here is pursuing justice. And also the HOD was talking about accountability of 2011 can only be corrected but not accounted for presently. That is true. But the fact still remains that justice has to be pursued. So I want to find out as to what steps have been taken in respect of the accounting officer of that time in terms of pursuing justice. Page 17, Chairperson, it's just a concern in respect of the slow spending of 2019-20, the budget of 46 million, which is up to now standing at 5.1 million. Maybe the portfolio committee needs to monitor that, Chairperson. Page 16 and 17, the funds that were approved against slow spending and also underspending on page 17, Chairperson, the balance of 45.462 million where no rollover was granted. I want to say, Chairperson, the HOD cannot talk as if because in the current budget they are making up for that lost money, then it means that all things are sweet and good. No. If the rollover has not been approved, it's a loss to the department. What they are doing now is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Page 18, I want to check the status of the 200 graduates who should have been placed in March. The CFO, the HOD did not tell us about their status. Page 19, the table G. The HOD again did not talk to it properly because some of the issues there have been overtaken by circumstances. I want to find out what is happening in respect of the issues that have been overtaken by circumstances. And the Mjindi, that is no longer operational HOD. What about consequence management? In addition to whatever has been handed over, they may not be operational anymore, but consequence management has to kick in. And page 22, the table of irregular expenditure for the province shows that, as you said, HOD, agriculture 2018-19 was standing at 125.3 million, but it increased drastically for 2019-20 to 715 million. And you say of that, plus minus 520 million has not yet been condoned. This is, as a comment again, a loss to the department. On page 26, Chair, 7.1, the individuals identified in AG report, the report says, such as the former CHO has resigned. No. The issue of such as cannot apply here. Let us be specific and not say such as, because people need to be pursued individually, not as a collective. So when the report says such as, who else? Because the report says such as the CFO, who else was involved? And are those people being pursued? And on page 32, Chairperson, the employee subsequently resigned with effect from 30 September 2015. Then what? He resigned. Are there any steps being taken to pursue that employee who resigned? On page 33, I think is the same issue. Page 35, case number FR 21 of 2010, action 2 left the employee of the department. Is the same story. Then what? Because the issue that they have jumped ship should not be a condonment of wrongdoing. They should be pursued wherever they are. Honorable Chairperson and HOD. The same story goes for FR 20 of 2010. the presiding officer dismissed this matter due to excessive delays. That is very upset. That a matter will not be pursued because there were delays, but justice has not been served. I think HOD, this matter still needs to be pursued. We cannot say because there were delays. We don't even know delays by who. Maybe the culprit was playing those delaying tactics. We don't know. And then FR 2010 on page 26, on page 36, FR 10 of 2013, one official left the employ of the department. Then what? It's the same story. Is there any justice that is being pursued in respect of the person who jumped ship? For now, Chairperson, I'll stop there, but go to, lastly, to the comment HOD that you said about the unions. I think the HOD is forgetting that he's not talking to the portfolio committee. You're talking to Scopa, HOD. And again, your comment of saying union members, not how, have been instrumental in wanting HOD to account to them. No. You cannot divorce individuals from their union. So don't be the spokesperson of NEHAW. Whether it's individual members or as a group, it's NEHAW. Thanks, Chairperson. I rest my case there. Thank you.
Thanks, Honourable Kaula. That was a bit of a long case. Let me now hand over to Honourable Taliza. Honourable Taliza? Okay, let's...
Hello.
Are you here?
Yes, sir.
Honourable Taliza. Right, proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to you and members and other officials. Mine is short, Slalo. You see, if you remember in the last meeting, we were all a bit disappointed with the department. But if I hear in today's presentation, they've upgraded themselves. They've improved themselves. So I thought I have to say that we are a bit comfortable with this report, although there are some challenges here and there, as Honourable Kaula was mentioning. I'm not going to repeat them, but at least if you see a sign of improvement in the department, that is pleasing. You see, I'm a bit relieved where I am with the performance of the department. If I take it from the last meeting that we had, I didn't expect such an improvement, and thank you to the department and the MEC. I think in the next meeting we'll see it will be much better than this. Thank you.
Thanks, Honourable Taliza. Honourable Roger.
Thanks, Chair. Let me also start off by saying that the report that was presented today is a far better attempt that was done at the last Scopa hearing. But, having said that, Chair, this is a typical department where we keep talking about an ethical, capable state, and where you don't have a capable, ethical state, then we have the failures that this department has been prone to over the last few years. But the plan and the projected solutions makes a lot of sense. But it's a bit like baking a pudding, I suppose. The pudding might look nice, but at the end of the day, it's what the pudding tastes like. So it's difficult to say whether, in fact, this is going to work, but it's something that the Portfolio Committee and us as Scopa and as the legislature is going to have to monitor. And I want to start off by just asking the question I didn't see anywhere in the report about any skills audit. I saw lots of references to the lack of capacity and training taking place, but nowhere did I see that the department is undertaking or has undertaken any skills audit. So if I could be given some sort of clarity if that process is going to be undertaken. Then, Chair, I've got some specific questions which I'll run through quite quickly on the report that was given. And one of those is the current vacant posts, the critical vacant posts and the other unfilled posts. And I know this is probably a difficult question for the department to answer, But in view of the challenges that we're facing with the further budget cuts due to COVID-19, does the department envisage that it's actually going to be able to fill these posts? Because that then is going to take us backwards. Then when it comes to workshops that are being conducted with training, particularly when it comes to SCM, with the program managers, with finance and strategies, I'd just like to know from the department, is the department doing this internally, or has it requested any support from Treasury to try and build that capacity? There's a couple of times during the report where they've referred to that. Then also under lack of consequence management, it may have been asked, but the previous CFO resigned. My question again is, what does he then just go and work for the Department of Agriculture in Free State? I know as a portfolio committee we've discussed this before. Is there any system in place where this revolving door employment system is stopped? Does the department report such cases to higher structures so that we avoid that? And then under the inability to respond and address to challenges identified, there's a turnaround strategy that's particularly linked to expenditure. And my question again is, and I didn't see it in the responses, the Finance Portfolio Committee took a resolution, transversal resolution, that monthly management accounts would be supplied to committees. Now, I see that in the report they say that the MEC and the HOD and the chairperson will receive these reports. My question is, are these management reports in the pipeline, and are they being supplied to the committee? So that once again, the committee is also in a position to support the department and to try and assist the department to avoid under expenditure. Then under the service contracts, Chairperson, my question is, and I just need to understand a little bit more. You know, there's a review of the contract register, but I don't get the feeling that this is actually going to rectify the challenge that's currently being experienced. If we could just get a little bit more detail there. Decentralization of supply chain management, I think that's a good step in the right direction. My question to the department, though, with your regular under expenditure, is the centralization of SCM not going to delay expenditure, and what steps will they have in place to deal with that? And then, Chair, just finally under the Mjindi and ADA rationalization, the transfer of assets, I assume that there's a current asset register. All those assets will be checked, and then they'll be transferred across to Mjindi. What is the projected savings by the rationalization of those two entities? Has in fact the department done any work on that? And then also there was an issue raised about Mjindi will be collecting the debt that's due to it. My question is, if we're rationalizing, why does ADA not take over that debt and manage the recuperation of that? And I'll also just leave it there. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honourable Rogers. Can we hand over to Honourable Nkosi?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I want to echo what my previous colleagues have indicated around an encouraging report that we have received from both the MEC and the head of department. And indeed, it is quite encouraging. But there are questions that one has to post. We don't want to be confused that we are dealing with the annual report. And you are responding to the issues that we raised when we met with you when we were dealing with the annual report. What then I want to know is whether this report gives us assurance as the members of the standing committee that the elementary mistakes of the department for more than 11 years are not going to be revealed by the audit of 2019-2020. That's the first question. Then the second question is, will the audit of 2019-2020 reveal the huge reduction of the irregular expenditure? That's the second question that I'm worried about. Then on the question of the SCM, which is reported to be the main culprit in the department for the past 11 years when I was in the legislature, does the HOD believe that those problems and intransigence by that unit are now resolved for good, so that we are not going to see the repercussions of their own intransigence when it comes to the audit of 2019-2020. The fourth area that I'm worried about is what the HOD has indicated around the question of the notorious underspending in the department for the past 11 years. Deliberately, I don't want to go beyond I joined the legislature. I will just zoom into the time when I joined the legislature up to this point in time. Are we indicating that the practice of the department, because that's what creates a huge underspending, according to my own independent investigation, is that the departmental officials, I don't know whether it happens at provincial or district level, they don't want to spend in the 11 months of the financial year, and will then clock the system when it comes to the last month of the financial year. I wanted to find out if that practice, which I have observed over a long period of time, is going to be not revealing its ugly head when it comes to the audit for 2019-2020. The last question is an area that gives me sleepless nights every year, is around the underspending of the conditional grant by this department. Are we given the assurance that this conduct, which is highly unacceptable, not going to be revealed when it comes to the audit of 2019-2020? Other colleagues covered me. I don't want to go to the rest, but these are the fundamental issues that I believe that if they are attended to, they are going to be addressed. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honourable Nkosi. Can we go to Honourable de Klerk? Honourable de Klerk, are you there?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to refer to Resolution 5. The resolution was regarding the big problem of irregular expenditure. And in the answer from the department, it says that transfer payments, immovable assets, and that has been fixed, and it's only the completeness of the irregular expenditure that is still a problem. But I don't understand, because the issue is not the others, the issue is the irregular expenditure. So can we just have clarity on what is going to be done to eliminate that? If we look at the action taken by the department in this regard, firstly, it's the lack of leadership. Now, we do have new leadership. What processes has been put into place to make sure that there will not be a repeat of the lack of leadership. Then the monitoring of the contracts, what processes is put into place to make sure that that has been fixed. Now that's except now the aspect that there's new people being appointed. I feel that just new people being appointed does not answer the problem. This new people surely by now, or whoever has been appointed, has a specific action procedures that's going to be followed. The point number 3, the poor procurement and planning compliance, exactly the same there. What is the procurement plan? What processes is there going to, can the department tell me what is the processes that will make them adhere to the procurement plan in this situation? Then, let me just quickly turn to the next page. Once again, it's a problem on 4.3, an inadequate capacity of the budget section. What has been done to build the capacity? It states there that build capacity in budget section under finance, but what has been done? The inadequate training and lack of training of the Treasury practice notes. What has been done specifically to fix that? Has the delegation system been fixed? How has it been fixed? Then lastly, the lack of consequent management. We see here in the answer that 7.1, all allegations of corrupt activities is currently referred for investigation, but I don't see specifics when. When was it referred? And when do we think we will hear any effect on it? And the same with 7.2, individuals identified by the AG and so on. So my request is just, is it possible for the HOD to give us a little bit more detail on what actions has been taken with consequence management? Otherwise, it just carries on into oblivion, and at the end of the day, we don't know what happened. Thank you.
Thanks, Honourable de Klerk. Honourable Sonjika.
Thanks, Honourable Chair. The questions that I wanted to ask, they've been covered by Honourable Nkosi. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Before we hand over to the HOD, let me just raise a few other matters. Colleagues, you should by now have received the annexures that were referred to in the report, because I've received them on email, and I'm sure they are with you. In terms of the department's audit improvement strategy, there are quite a few matters that have actually not yet been resolved or implemented. So HOD, you're going to have to tell us, and I think colleagues, we're going to have to do a follow-up on this. Overall, the department had identified 100 corrective measures per directorate, right? And this is in relation to the findings of the Auditor General. But 21 of these measures are actually overdue. So I'm going to go through it page by page because these are important matters. On page 2, item 2 of the audit improvement strategy, it talks about Izimvelo infrastructure projects to the value of 36 million. And all these projects are under investigation. We would require a progress report on this. Then on page 18, you've got items 27, 28, 29, 30, where the department had not provided adequate records to the auditors on the number of commercial farmers supported, number of hectares planted, number of hectares under irrigation. And the department's problem is that it's still using a manual system. We are told that an electronic system is being investigated. We will require a progress report on that because that is clearly hampering the performance reporting of the department. On page 22, item 31, irregular expenditure, the department did not use bid evaluation sheets, so the auditor could not evaluate the bids. And the department then said that their IT is going to create a shared drive. We need a progress report on that. Page 26, item 37, very serious matter. The AG found documents submitted for auditing were forged and recommended that the department investigate and implement consequence management. Now, when you look at item 37, colleagues, because I am really concerned about this, you'll see that there was a cut and paste, there was a forging of a signature, a whole range of things that were put into this document. And the AG then had recommended that the matter be investigated, and the extent of falsified documents must be submitted to the AG auditors, and proper consequence management procedures must be implemented. And then various other matters. The response is that management considers the matter resolved and closed. Now, what exactly was the outcome of this? Because this is very serious. Then on page 27, item 38, there was possible collusive tendering with regarding to catering services for Dara, and it was recommended by the AG that an investigation be conducted and cancellation of the contract occur if collusion was found. The department says that internal control will investigate in its risk improvement strategy, but there's nothing further reported. And we are now sitting in May. Okay, so this is also a matter that has to be followed up. Then on page, I'm going to run through this, colleagues, because there are quite a few matters. There's a matter in the improvement strategy about a staff member whose spouse is doing business with the department. And here, this is page 33, item 49. Again, there isn't evidence of consequence management because this is fraud. Page 35, item 52, the list of outdated finance policies that are not yet reviewed. Some of them are not in line with Treasury circulars. Would like a progress report on that. And on page 31, item 46, employees doing business with the state. We've said that the department, it said here, they've completed investigations. These employees did not have permission. We want feedback on the disciplinary action that the department is supposed to have taken. So you'll see, colleagues, that there are quite a few matters in the audit improvement strategy. And MEC, I'm glad that you will be following this. There are 21 of these measures identified that are overdue. Then also the issue of the vacant posts. There are a large number of vacant posts that have to be filled, right? 169 require premier approval. And we are aware that part of the problem in this department is the fact that there are no warm bodies where they are required. So this has to be fast-tracked. It was supposed to have been advertised, these 169 posts, as of 12 March. Clearly, that has not occurred. I think the portfolio committee would need to follow up to say what is the time frame. Then, in terms of these employees who have left the department, what I've also seen in the report on investigations is that many of these matters, it is stated, cannot go further because of the delays in the matter being brought to hearings and therefore being prescribed. I'm very concerned about that because this could become a strategy of employees to avoid consequences. So we'd like some feedback about how the department intends tackling this kind of matter where there are undue delays. I must also point out the HOD has told us that they are awaiting reports from the Hawks, etc. As Scopa, we have now entered into a very, very strong relationship with the Special Investigations Unit, where we are there's a commitment to regularly brief us, and we would like also to get into a similar relationship with other agencies. So we will also be following that up. Let me hand over to the HOD. You may not be able to answer all the matters right here. We will then await your response in writing to Scopa.
Chair, Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable Sonjika.
Just one area that I just want to check with the HOD according on the page, I think it's page 84. I think it relates to the entity, the unpaid invoices. There is a matter that they are raising there about invoices that are not paid because of no orders of recurring services. I mean, is it possible that suppliers would just send things that are not ordered? There must be an official that is either colluding with those suppliers, or there must be something. I don't see how a supplier would just send something that has not been ordered by the department. Can that be explained to us? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Sonjika, for pointing that out. Actually, it operates both ways. If there was no order, why are things received and paid for by the department? So you're quite correct. But it also points back, Honorable MEC, to the history of this department, where there is a lot of collusion, wrongdoing, and misspending of the public purse. HOD?
Thanks, Chairperson. Let me firstly humbly accept that there are challenges within the department, which are, of course, as I've said earlier on, they are embedded in the structure of the department historically. But in our response, I will request the CFO to respond to the matters that have been raised, which falls within her portfolio. And we also have my colleague Ubabala will respond in terms of the AG action plan shortly. And then I will also respond to the rest of the questions. If you may allow us, can you allow these other two colleagues of mine to come back to report, Chairperson, without me responding to all the questions? Unless you want me to respond, I can do that, Chairperson.
No, it's fine. If they are the ones under where the line functions are, it's fine. Actually, let me request that the responses are brief, because we do have the background to most of these.
Can you start, CFO? Can you be brief and then followed by Babalo in that sequence? Thanks, Chairperson.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to honourable members. Just on the issue of irregular expenditure balance, it is true that the 125 million, as raised by Honourable Kaula, related to what was picked up for 18-19. However, the 725 is an accumulative balance. And unfortunately, with the completeness test, we anticipate that this amount in the register is likely to increase, just based on the preliminary work which we've done with the Provincial Treasury. Because the issue of the audit was that the register was incomplete because there were certain transactions which the department should have picked up and included in the register. So by virtue of us correcting the completeness issue, we are likely to end up with a bigger balance. However, what we have undertaken to do is to investigate the matters quickly and to continuously then be referring those matters to the Provincial Treasury for consideration, as well as for the consideration of the HOD in terms of consequence management and disciplinary action where necessary. Just as part of some of the other issues in terms of SCM and training, yes, we have worked with the Provincial Treasury with some of the trainings, particularly on local content. As you would know, this is a DTI competence, but they do not conduct the trainings themselves, and this is a function where they work then with the Provincial Treasury to ensure that provincial departments are trained. So the training is happening in-house, and in terms of some of the updates, it's mainly to ensure communication of those instruction notes to the practitioners. And we've just taken a practical stance where we issue a formal circular to all SCM officials, and then when necessary, I then hold a working session with the ADs and including the acting director and deputy directors. The last session was just on instruction 5, which was dealing with the urgency emergency procurement relating to COVID and how we handle the issue of procurement around these times, which was done last week when the instruction note was issued. Just in terms of the skills audit around SCM, that's part of the broader turnaround plan for the department. And I think in terms of it looking at assessing the skill sets which we have within supply chain, we have that is targeted, and it's going to be done with the assistance of the Office of the Premier. We're starting with supply chain, obviously, to ensure that there is alignment with qualification and with what the person is doing as a job function. And looking at that as well, the centralization will assist in sense that some of the two service centers are actually just close in proximity, honorable members. One office was in Hilton and the other being Sadara. So geographically, it's not that much of a change. However, we're also looking at using ICT to assist with the submission of requisitions and looking at how we can then fast track and make the process to be more efficient as part of the overall supply chain turnaround strategy and to try to ensure centralization. On the issue of contract management, we believe that the interventions will assist because most of the issues, it's more on the monitoring. And when you monitor the procurement plan, you are then going to be clear as to what sourcing strategy you need to implement for some of the existing services that are currently being provided. But I think HOD already indicated that in the main, it was security service contracts that were an issue to the department, and some of the other technical contracts such as lab work, and we have then gone proactively on open competitive bids for those particular services to ensure that we get out of the month to month because of the specialization of those contracts. Then just looking at the issue of, I think I've touched on from what Honorable Nkosi raised in terms of the reduction of irregular expenditure, that it will be a longer process to try and reduce it because the first step is to try and get the register to be complete. And then just on the under expenditure issue, we have had an improvement in the amount of under expenditure. Although what we have managed to do is to at least ensure that all of the transactions are committed, and we've been able to reduce under expenditure to lower than it has been, I think, in the past 3 years. Although this is going to be a continual area of improvement, because the one other area which we will need to zoom in on more closer is on the conditional grants. And here, one of the challenges, honourable members, was that the plans, such as the CASP, were approved only in October, which then created the ripple effect of the delay in terms of how quickly we could then action some of the projects, because to also action a project that's not approved as per the plan would have also been another sort of challenge. So that is what management then started on to work with first. So just Honourable de Klerk then also raised the issue of the monitoring of the contract. Yes, it is a systematic issue. We've started with the SOPs, which were not reviewed, which then speaks to the process itself and trying to prevent any irregular expenditure at a transaction level, more on a proactive basis. We've submitted those SOPs to AG as well. But what is happening with Provincial Treasury, they'll also be using those as a risk management and to review them if there are any gaps, which is going to be an ongoing issue. We also have now a dedicated unit that will focus on internal control in SCM unit so that we build capacity on that. But obviously COVID-19 has also then prevented some of the initiatives that we wanted to try and recruit people more with an auditing background to assist with that issue and be the preventative part. In terms of the capacity in the budget section, some of the positions that are currently with Office of the Premier, it's 45 in total for the Office of the CFO, 24 as already indicated are supply chain, but then the balance are on the monitoring, because we have to monitor conditional grants and do that monitoring on a monthly basis and a more proactive basis if we are going to utilize IYM and be more effective in that regard. Thank you, Chairperson. That's where I will leave some of the financial issues.
Okay. HOD, who is the next on your team that you want to call?
If Ms. Babala can be quick, just to respond on the matters raised around the audit requirement strategy.
Good morning, Chairperson and the members of the honorable members of the Scopa. There was a question around an investigation that UAG has recommended on a supplier. That investigation, there was a scoping exercise that was done, and we found that it's not only irregular, there's more investigation that needs to be done, and that was referred to provincial internal audit services.
Okay, HOD. Sorry, is there anything else that you are adding, Babalo?
Yes, Chairperson. What has been picked up by AG over and above, we've got what has been picked by AG in terms of the investigation, we refer it to provincial internal audit services. Thank you.
Okay, so that's going to be a follow-up, HOD?
Yeah, if I may come in, Chairperson. In terms of the questions that were asked, Chairperson, there was a question on the issue of the graduates, employment of the graduates. What happened, Chairperson, is that we have appointed quite few. In total, there are within the department, we have got 265 graduates that have been appointed. 205 were already appointed. They are placed on the farms. Around March, we were interviewing 60, and that process has been completed. On the eve of the lockdown, we were supposed to place those unemployed graduates. That is the first one. The second one is around the issue of transfer of Mjindi assets. All the assets of Mjindi are currently under audit, and once they are all transferred to ADA. As from the 1st of April, they fall under entity ADA. The AG audit is to establish the credibility of the information that has been done so far, and also to deal with the auditing of the non-financial reports. The savings that emanates from the process of rationalization has not yet been quantified. We have currently placed employees on post to holder, not into a permanent position. That process will be running until somewhere around October, December. And once that process has been completed, because you will have cases where people appeal and others object to the issue of the placement, and that process, once it has been completed, will then be able to establish the actual cost. However, there's guaranteed savings in terms of the board fees, in terms of other overhead costs that were part of Mjindi's expenses. Those are guaranteed savings. But in terms of the operational staffing matters, the rest will be quantified by the end of the third quarter. The debt, of course, from Mjindi has been taken over by ADA, and the ADA is in the process of dealing with the issue of the debt collection. It's not going to be a dead issue. It's going to be revived. The issue of investigations, Honourable Chair, the goal, as Honourable Kaula was saying, he wants justice. Unfortunately, I work for Department of Agriculture. I wish I had both justice and agriculture. We will be working with the Department of the State Attorney to ensure that there is justice in all the wrongdoings of the past. And there's quite a lot, Chairperson. If one may focus on those, I will have to change the side mirror to become the windscreen, which means I will have to look at the past most of the time. And that will, of course, disrupt us. Because some of these issues will have been dealt with 2016, 2017, and be closed as cases if needed to be closed. And we will pursue through the state attorney. We are working with Treasury to ensure that all matters that are raised, as per your comment, Chairperson. For an example, you were looking at the issue of the reports that AG raised, the forging of signatures. This comes from the AG and both Treasury's internal audit report. And most of those issues come from 2016, 17, 18, 19, and some goes to 2015. Some with regard to the catering company. For your information, Chairperson, with regard to the catering companies, the recent information that Treasury brought to me, and I've immediately, last 2 weeks, returned back to Treasury to say we request forensic investigation around this matter, because it is clear that there are elements of fraudulent activities around those. But in a nutshell, those issues have already been cited as irregular expenditures that add up to the 700 million. But those are the issues that should have been dealt somewhere in the past and identified at that time. But we are dealing with those. As Babalo have said, we've identified all those lists, Chairperson, that were referred to Treasury for investigation. As Mvelo infrastructure, that is one of the another elephant in the room. Chairperson, as Mvelo is now under ATIA, they left a trail of unfinished projects with the department. And we've quantified that comes to 17 million rands to complete those projects. Stems from irrigation projects and other agriculture-related infrastructure projects. What we have done, Chairperson, I've requested our technical team to appoint a surveyor that will quantify exactly how much work was done in those projects. Do we really need to pursue as Mvelo or those service providers? I had the meetings with the CEO of Mvelo. Mvelo was saying to us, you know what? When agriculture did not spend, they will come to Mvelo, which was another practice. They will come to Mvelo with a service provider. Mvelo will provide a consultant, or the department will come with a consultant, and then Mvelo will provide a service provider. But always, as Honorable Nkosi will say, it always comes towards the end of the financial year where the department wanted to reflect expenditure. That is the culture that we are trying to turn around, as the CFO said. It's going to take us some time to deal with those past issues, because we need files, we need records, and we have requested such. And also in terms of Honorable de Klerk, the issue of leadership, the issue of capacity, the issue, as we have said, with regard to the budget office and finance, where there are 45 posts that were referred for approval, we're waiting for such. Consequence management, I think the CFO have said that we are taking up all these matters and we're requesting Treasury. But we have also noted that Treasury might have capacity issues, because there are quite a lot of issues that they are dealing with. Where there's a sense of agency on our side, I've requested the internal audit to also pursue our own private forensic experts so that the matter can be dealt with speedily. I think Nkosi, CFO covered your issues. We really appreciate your comment, and it's also motivating as well, Chairperson. In terms of Honorable Rogers, the issue of skills audit, we are worried that the Premier's office might take a bit long. We have agreed with the CFO that we will do our own skills audit in the finance section, especially around supply chain. What we have also done, we have also developed a rotational policy with the supply chain staff, which did not go well with my organized labor as well. because I think I'm moving people up and down without having to consult. But that is the nature of governance and the game at that level, that there's going to be contradictions. But we have started with the rotation of staff. The next step will be the skills audit, that we are saying if Premier's office is not doing it tomorrow, as soon as we come back, we will have our own team to look into that. The current vacant post is worrying. We've started, as I've said, we had issues around the lockdown that put hold on our processes. Centralization, I think the CFO have covered that one, including the issue of the management of submission of reports to the portfolio committee. Honorable Teresa, I would really appreciate your comments. We commit to do better, and we commit to improve as well. Honorable Kaula, I think your concerns are highly noted. We will be dealing with the issue of bringing justice to the past malfeasance that have happened in the department. We will work with the agencies. I'm happy that the chairperson have said they can summon the special investigation unit to give the committee report in terms of some of the work that has been done. We will put to the chairperson in writing which are those cases, how long they've been in the department, so that the chairperson can have a proper background in terms of the agency intervention in the department. The issues of cases where in 2015 people resigned, in 2016 people, when they were under investigation, resigned. I think it has been, the matter has been raised by the Department of Public Administration to say, you can't resign anymore if you're under investigation. That has been the practice in the past. And once a person has resigned, the person had resigned, and the matter will fall away. I think that we all know. And that has been the strategy then. But now that plan is really no longer going to apply in many cases. But we understand that members have raised many questions. We will respond in writing so that we fully respond to some of the questions that have not been answered properly. But as I've said, Chairperson, we are committed to improve the capacity and the ethics and the standard of good governance within the department, which will take some time because there will be contradictions, and we will be seeing some of us as people doing wrong things, as some will try to defend themselves. That has happened in the past. There are campaigns that are undermining what we are doing, and we are committed to go through that route as well. I'm raising this so that members, when they read papers in terms of what we do, whether we are outsourcing some of the services or we are moving staff unceremoniously or without following procedures, that is going to be the fight that we are heading towards. I'm raising this so that members can be aware that we will come back and account if such areas are raised or members feel that we should account around those issues. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks, HOD. Colleagues, I think that we have been afforded some responses. We will need to, and HOD, we will engage with your department by way of further responses required. You have made some commitments here, but I want to agree with what my colleagues are saying, that we note the improvement, and we must encourage that and say that you need to go further. There's a lot that you have to go through, HOD, because this department has really been in an ICU. And we have to remind you that this department, the hopes of the province rest on this department, because we are a rural province, and agriculture is the means by which is one of the priorities of this government. So there's a lot resting on your shoulders, and we do understand the pressures that you have. We want to say that we will welcome your input in relation to matters that we can follow up with and assistance we can give from Scopa. Remember that our responsibility is public accounts, ensuring that there is a proper financial accounting as well. So we are more than willing to assist you. Colleagues from the Portfolio Committee are present, so they are also aware of matters that they will follow up on. And we want to encourage you to continue with this, but also to say that you've just started the race. You have a long way to go, but we think that you have made a reasonably good start. So for that, we will thank you. Members, I think there are other matters that we will follow up on, but we will have the discussion around it. The hearing has been recorded, so all matters will be picked up. So thank you very much, MEC. Thank you, HOD, for coming to this hearing, and let us hope that going forward, we will see more progress in the department. We are aware of the extensions that have been given for the submission of annual financial statements and for annual reports. But we are urging departments to try and comply as far as possible. Don't leave things to the last minute because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Because like everything else, the COVID-19 pandemic will go. There is still service delivery that needs to occur in the province. Thank you very much. Everyone keep safe, wash your hands, sanitize. Thank you. Members, this meeting is over.
Thanks, Chair.
I'm going to dial off now, colleagues. Thank you very much to all of you for making yourselves available.
Thank you very much, Slalo.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Slalo.
Bye, everyone. Okay, bye, everyone.
How sanibona Fraser. Sanibona mhlonishwa Fraser.
Bye bye.
Bye bye mhlonishwa Khawula.